Hello my fellow non-Stephs. It's currently Florian out, and this video was going to be recorded by Eli, but he happened to not be out, but he did type everything that he wanted to say out, so I thought I would take the video myself. So I am the co-host in our system as well as a verbal protector, so I protect people when they attack us with words, and less of a physical protector, but I think I would be a good one regardless. So today's video idea was actually suggested to us by a fellow follower on our TikTok live, and today's video is going to be about all the different roles and titles of the different roles within people with dissociative identity disorder and within those systems. For people who are new to DID, and even those who aren't, when discussing the disorder of dissociative identity disorder and alters and all of those other things, there are all these types of words that get thrown around that can be very confusing for someone who's relatively new to learning about DID. So hopefully this video will bring light and explanation on and awareness to some of the vocabulary used when discussing DID and vocabulary used by professionals and by those who are diagnosed with DID. The word host refers to the alter or personality who takes on day-to-day tasks. They are often the ones in control of the body the most often. Sometimes host can be the alter who was the original in the body before trauma occurred, but this isn't always true for every system. For some systems, hosts can't remember any trauma whatsoever, so that they are the most workable person, they can do things the most, all of those kinds of things. For us personally, our hosts and majority of our alters do remember trauma, whether or not they have the memory because they experienced it, or they just have the memory so they can be sensitive to what has happened to us and protect us from those things happening again. Most of us don't have the emotional connection to trauma that happened to us. Hosts can actually change throughout time, and systems will usually have multiple hosts throughout their lifetime. In past TikToks and lives, we have talked about our caretaker alter. This alter who is a person who does a lot of work internally and are kind of a type of protector. They help manage and care for other alters, and sometimes front to help external people when troubled, as they have a lot of empathy and understanding. So caretaker alters are very often quite motherly and very caring and maternal in their the ways that they take care of everyone else and do their job. That doesn't necessarily mean that they are always going to be women. They can be non-human alters and still be a caretaker alter. They can be a male alter, they could be a non-binary alter, they could be a dead alter, all of those other things, but they are often very motherly in the way that they are perceived and the way they react to lots of other people. They may sometimes be modeled off of people in real life that the system deemed as kind of a safe person or a motherly or a caring person, and therefore becomes an introject and then continues to stay in the system and kind of taken on and put into the system to take care of everyone else because the body deemed them safe on the outside, so therefore they would be really helpful to have on the inside. Caretaker alters are often seen taking care of littles and sometimes calming or de-escalating persecutors or abuser alters or alters that aren't having the best time because they're very soothing in their nature. Caretakers are commonly involved in welcoming new alters or fragments, but that is obviously not going to happen in every system, but for us especially and some other systems, that is commonly what their job is. So basically they're like a cleaner or a caretaker for a building or a landscape area, but that building is a system. So a common one that people talk about and commonly get brought up, and a lot of people learning about DID and starting off their time in learning about DID, often their first experiences in learning about DID, they always know what littles are. So littles are children alters, and these are usually referred to as littles, but they are a type of child alter. Several child alters usually exist in a majority of systems. They often talk in a childlike way, genuine children, but unlike biological children, they can understand very abstract thoughts and ideas and very long words. There are a few types of alters that often get a large amount of backlash and stigma when they're brought up and that are attached to them, which I don't necessarily understand, but I'm in a system, so I guess that's not my place to say how singlets feel about things. Animal alters are one of these. So animal alters within systems are perfectly normal and very valid, just like all the others. Those who face severe trauma may develop animal parts or alters because they identify with animals and consider them friends. Animals like tigers could be protectors, growling when they're angry and to get people to go away, lashing out when they need to, etc. Alters may also become to believe they are an animal because abusers either told them they were or treated them like animals. Complex trauma can leave a person feeling inhumane, and therefore the brain takes that assumption and applies it to an alter. It basically personifies that. Animal or animal-like alters should be accepted and treated just like the other alters. Animal alters often have a definite gender and can present and accepted as human without people that are talking to them necessarily even being aware that they're talking with an animal alter at all. When discussing alters and systems, we have to remember that a lot of alters were created when the brain was still very young, and therefore the child might think, oh, if only I was a dragon, so I could just blow fire on this person that was hurting me and I would be safe and I could fly away. And I think the reason a lot of people have stigma towards animal alters is because it adds to the whole, oh, you're just delusional part of it, which isn't true because the trauma happens at such a young age. Of course, the creations and alters aren't going to be the most realistic thing. It's not something that, just because it's an animal alter doesn't mean it's any less real and valid. That child was experiencing something that a child should never have to go through. And therefore, of course, a child who reads storybooks and is still learning about the world and knows, hey, this animal is really strong, I wish I was like them, because they're going through something that no child should have to. Persecutor alters are also usually stigmatized. They're usually shown in the media to be the bad alter or the murderer, which is definitely not true. Persecutors are usually the most traumatized alters within a system, and they show this through being aggressive, angry, or hurting the body, and not really anyone else. Persecutor alters are most likely to hurt themselves rather than someone on the outside, which I think the media gets wrong. Persecutor alters are the ones the media likes to kind of dig their teeth into because they can turn that into a horror movie, or they can use that concept of, I'm a good person, blah, 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 and then, oh, but I have this bad personality inside of me that I cannot control, which is very unrealistic because persecutor alters are nothing like that. They're just very sad and very traumatized people that don't know how to deal with their trauma other than hurting themselves and being angry. Because persecutor alters act angry because that stops us from being further hurt. They are actually, in a way, more persecutor than protector more than anything. They're more protected than anyone else because the way they're protecting is just different. They are lashing out on purpose because then they can get the other person to leave them alone first instead of getting attached to someone who is then going to hurt us. Dead alters are another alter that's in a system, and we have some ourselves. Dead alters are often formed of trauma in which they felt they were being killed, or the brain perceived it was dying. A person who survives a near-death experience may develop a dead alter to contain this experience. Alters can't actually die or be killed, but dead alters are very real and they feel very dead. Dead alters can be zombies or any undead creature, but usually show up as ghosts since the brain was so close to dying it thought it did. Basically, dead alters within the system may seem like they're floating because of an experience in which the body at one point was floating above the ground because of an attempt, or was drowned and therefore they became a water spirit, or things like that, or almost drowned. And ghost alters often come from very bad experiences, and for a lot of systems that means that they get trapped within their experience, getting it replayed over and over until they're found by other alters. I know this was an experience of us as well as another system. Dead alters often come off as very shy and quiet due to being dead, but they might also be very aggressive because they don't understand what's happening and they're very scared. Some systems can form introjects, which is where the personality and sometimes looks of someone in real life on Earth is basically just copied onto the inside of a system. This can be for many reasons. Sometimes introjects are of people who the system deemed safe, and therefore they want within their system to just do what that person does on the outside. Other times an introject is an abuser, and the brain thinks that it's helping itself because they've been so abused into that thought of, if you just did this, you would be good, just act this way. And so that alter goes around and tells the others, stop doing that, don't do this, do it this way, and it's usually very aggressive towards them, but it's only aggressive because the brain thinks it's helping itself and helping them by doing that, by introjecting that certain person. You can also get introjects from TV shows, movies, books, etc. This is very common in systems who have special interests or on the autism spectrum, as it's something that the brain basically spends a lot of time watching or reading or being engaged with, and it's deemed as something safe and good and positive, so the brain goes, I'm just gonna use this and create an alter based off that experience, which is a very interesting thing. And I think those ones often get a lot of hate by people that know about DID, but not completely, because they're like, oh, you're kinning this character, you're pretending to be this character, obviously you're a fake system. Whereas introjects are very common. Introjects can be off real people, they can be off movies and media, they can be off anything. You can get introjects of dead people, anything your brain clings onto. You don't really have much of a choice of what that is, and it's more likely to cling on things that you spend a lot of time on, but that can cling on to anything. It's not a choice of them to just choose. While all alters have different roles, they are all more than just that. Don't let this list fool you into thinking they're just some two-dimensional being. We all have such in-depth personalities outside of our roles, just like how a mother is a parent, but that isn't their own personality. Like, that's not all that they are. They are much, much more than just that. These examples are not the only experience that can happen with those who experience dissociative identity disorder. This is just examples of the most commonly seen symptoms and roles that have been explained from those with DID. But obviously, even if you aren't experiencing these things, but you are a system, that is okay, because no one can tell you how your experience is going to happen. This is obviously not all of the roles, but this is majority of them summed up in hopefully a way that was understandable for those who might be new to the idea of dissociative identity disorder. Thank you all for watching, and peace out, non-Stephs and maybe some Stephs.